Our story unfolds on a serene and unforgettable nature trip, where love, desire, and hidden emotions wove an intricate web among old friends. It was a month ago when our close-knit group, three families bound by years of friendship since college, embarked on an adventure into the heart of nature. With our children in tow, we set out to escape the monotony of daily life, unaware that this trip would change everything. My name is Sandra. I was there with my husband, Jean, and our 8-year-old twins. Among us were two other couples, one with a 7-year-old daughter and another with two boys, aged 7 and 8. We were a well-matched group, familiar with each other's quirks and histories. But hidden beneath the surface of our camaraderie was something unspoken, a lingering attraction that had lain dormant for years. Since our college days, I had harbored feelings for Tom. He was the kind of man who commanded attention effortlessly, charming, confident, and undeniably attractive. But by the time I realized my feelings, he was already committed to another. Life took its course, and I met Jean. Love blossomed between us, and my feelings for Tom faded into the background, buried beneath the routines of marriage and family life. But such emotions never truly die, do they? They resurface in unexpected moments, during chance meetings, stolen glances, and shared laughter on trips like these. While my marriage with Jean had settled into an uninspiring rhythm, Tom remained a man who still exuded the same magnetism he had in our youth. Time had only refined him further. His tailored suits, his confident stance, and the way he carried himself all set him apart. He was a man who had thrived, holding a prestigious position and enjoying a life of success, while my husband had slowly let himself go, no longer the man I once fell for. Our campsite, nestled deep within the wilderness, provided the perfect escape. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we pitched our tents, set up a bonfire, and let the night unfold in a blur of laughter, drinks, and stories. The children, exhausted from a day of adventure, lay bundled in blankets nearby, their soft murmurs lost amidst the crackling fire. It was in the glow of that fire that Tom seemed even more irresistible. Perhaps it was the alcohol or the flickering shadows that deepened the allure of his gaze. My heart raced whenever our eyes met, and I knew he felt it too. As the night stretched on and the others retired to their tents, my husband suggested I come with him to sleep. I hesitated, my pulse quickening. "I'll stay by the fire a little longer," I told him. He nodded, oblivious, and retreated into the tent after ensuring the children were safely tucked in. And then we were alone. Tom lingered as well, under the guise of escorting his wife, Ina, back to their tent. She had indulged a little too much in the night's revelry and quickly succumbed to sleep. Now, with only the wilderness around us, the tension between us crackled like the embers of the dying fire. I gestured for him to sit beside me, and he did, too close, yet not close enough. Our conversation was soft, hushed, laced with unspoken longing. Then, in a moment of reckless honesty, he confessed. "I've dreamed of you for years," he murmured. "You're more beautiful than ever, more than her, more than anyone." The words unraveled me. Every boundary I had once upheld dissolved in that instant. I knew it was wrong, knew it would change everything. But I didn't care. Not in that moment. The warmth of his breath, the intensity in his eyes, the way the night wrapped around us like a secret, it was too much to resist. And so, I didn't. The forest bore silent witness as we surrendered to the pull between us. The firelight danced over our entwined shadows, sealing the moment in the hush of the night. But fate is rarely kind to lovers of stolen moments. A rustling nearby shattered our illusion. Vincent, one of the husbands, emerged from his tent, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He had merely woken to relieve himself, but in doing so, he saw everything. For a breathless second, our gazes locked with his. He smirked but said nothing, merely continuing on his way. He was discreet, trustworthy. We exhaled in relief, believing our secret was safe. But we were wrong. Mere moments later, another figure stepped out into the night, Olivia, Tom's wife. Unlike Vincent, she did not simply walk away. Though she had the restraint not to scream and wake the children, the fury in her eyes was unmistakable. She turned abruptly, storming toward my husband's tent. "Jean!" she hissed, shaking him awake. "Wake up. You need to see this." Disoriented, groggy, my husband sat up, annoyed at the disturbance. "What?" he grumbled. But Olivia gave him no time for confusion. She stepped aside, gesturing toward the scene unfolding outside. And then, realization dawned in his eyes. He moved before I could react. In one swift motion, he stormed toward Tom and struck him hard, the impact echoing in the stillness of the night. Then, without warning, he turned to me, fury darkening his face. His fingers tangled in my hair as he dragged me toward our tent, his grip tight with betrayal. Everything had shattered in an instant. The passion, the secrecy, the quiet thrill, it was all gone. In its place, only the wreckage remained. The weight of our choices settled heavily upon us, suffocating in its finality. There was no going back, no way to undo what had been done. As we sat in the dim light of the dying fire, my husband's gaze was distant, his silence more damning than any outburst. I begged him not to raise his voice, not to wake the children who lay sleeping just a few feet away, blissfully unaware of the storm raging between us. He complied, but the fire in his eyes did not fade. Instead, he lowered himself onto the ground beside me, burying his head in his hands. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke. The words that followed were not shouts but quiet devastation. He listed every regret, every sacrifice, every moment he had spent loving me, only to be repaid with betrayal. His voice trembled, not with anger, but with heartbreak. I listened, unmoving, knowing that I had caused this pain, knowing that nothing I could say would ever make it right. And yet, my mind refused to let go of its own tormenting thoughts. The realization hit me like a cool twist of fate. I had waited too long. If I had pursued Tom back when we were younger, when he had first met his wife, perhaps things would have been different. Perhaps I wouldn't be here now, drowning in regret, having lost not just a friend, but a husband, a man who, despite everything, had been my rock for so many years. There was nothing left to say that night. The next evening, the four of us, my husband, Tom, his wife, and I, sat down for a final, private conversation. Olivia attempted to interfere, inserting her unsolicited advice, but we quickly dismissed her. This was something only we could resolve. Tom's wife, to her credit, did not lash out at me, nor did she let her emotions get the best of her. She was a strong woman. I had always known that. And yet, strength did not mean she wasn't hurting. The pain was evident in her eyes, in the way she avoided looking at Tom, in the way she kept her hands folded tightly in her lap, as if holding herself together by sheer will alone. The conversation was not explosive. There were no accusations, no heated arguments. Just silence, thick and heavy, as the weight of our decisions settled over us. There was no talk of forgiveness, no attempt to mend what had been irreparably shattered. We all knew the truth. Pretending to be a family after this would be nothing more than an illusion, a cool facade that none of us had the strength to maintain. And so, the decision was made. Divorce was inevitable. We would separate, part ways, and attempt to rebuild our lives from wreckage. The only thing we agreed upon was that, no matter what happened between us, our children would remain our priority. For them, we would maintain civility, keep up appearances, and ensure that they never felt the burden of our mistakes. But deep down, I knew my husband would never forgive me. My friend would never look at me the same way again. And Tom, for him, I had destroyed everything. My marriage, my stability, my very sense of self. I had done it all because I believed, foolishly, that he was the love I had always longed for, that we were meant to be. But reality has a way of unraveling even the most intoxicating illusions. After the dust settled, I tried to hold on to him. I reached out, hoping to turn what had begun as reckless passion into something real. One evening, I gathered my courage and invited him to meet me. I needed reassurance, needed to believe that this sacrifice had not been in vain. He agreed, and for a brief, fleeting moment, I let myself hope. But the truth he revealed shattered me more completely than I ever thought possible. He did not love me. Not truly. Not in the way I had convinced myself he did. He confessed, without hesitation, that I was not the first, that I was not special, that this was a pattern, a cycle he had fallen into time and time again, that it had always worked in his favor, and I had been no different. I had given up everything for a lie. The pain was unbearable. The realization that I had thrown away the one person who had truly loved me who had been there through every trial and triumph, was more than I could bear. I went home that night, broken beyond words, and fell to my knees before my husband. Through tears, I begged for his forgiveness. I told him I would do anything to fix what I had destroyed, that I finally understood the gravity of my betrayal, that I saw now, with painful clarity, what I had lost. His response was quiet, but it cut deeper than any shouted rage. "I still love you," he admitted, "but I don't know if I can ever forgive you." And in that moment, I knew the truth. Some mistakes cannot be undone. Some betrayals leave scars too deep to heal. And I had made the worst mistake of all. I had thrown away something real for something that was never mine to begin with.